Welcome to Thinkin' Deeper by 6-7. So here's a radical thought for you. What if God wasn't revealed from the heavens, but was actually forged right here on earth? Today, we're diving into the argument that it was the plow, not prayer, that created the gods we've worshipped for thousands of years. This is the story of how a massive economic revolution gave birth to the very idea of religion. The whole idea boils down to this. The agricultural revolution, about 10,000 years ago, didn't just change how we found our food. It completely rewired our societies. It created systematic labor, private property, ruling classes, and ultimately the very concept of an all-powerful God watching over us from somewhere up high.
Now, to really get your head around the scale of this change, you've got to picture the world that came before it. It's a time the philosopher Raoul Vaneigem described as a kind of golden age for humanity.
And you can forget that old image of our ancestors living a brutal, constant struggle for survival. A lot of anthropological evidence suggests that for hunter-gatherers, life was actually defined by abundance, a ton of leisure time, and this really deep connection with nature. Vaneigem called this original state religio, which wasn't a set of beliefs, but this feeling of being totally, intrinsically part of the world, not separate from it at all.
And listen, this isn't just some modern theory. You can find echoes of this time all through ancient texts. Descriptions of a golden age, a time when the earth just provided freely without all the endless work and misery that came to define human life later on.
So, the big question is, what happened? What shattered this golden age? Well, the argument here is that it wasn't a fall from grace, it was a revolution in our economy, a single massive shift in how we related to the earth itself. The Neolithic Revolution, that was the great turning point. Humanity went from basically gathering nature's free gifts to conquering it through labor. And with that conquest came a whole new way of organizing society. And this is where that fundamental split happens. That feeling of direct connection, religio, gets replaced by religion. It's no longer a direct experience. Instead, it becomes a system of power, of obedience, managed by an institution that stands between people and the natural world. You see, with agriculture, you get private property, you've got land to own, grain to store. And property, well, it needs to be defended. This is what gives rise to walls, to a warrior class, and a whole new logic of control. That fortress built to protect the surplus also became a kind of prison, locking people into a new economic reality. And by the way, if you like my channel, please do subscribe and press the like button. But here's where it gets really fascinating. This new economic order didn't just build walls of stone. It built walls in the sky. It created the absolute perfect conditions for the birth of gods. You can just see the dominoes fall, one after another. Managing these complex agricultural systems required a new managerial class. And this class, the first priests and kings, they cornered the market on essential knowledge, like when to plant, when to harvest. Then they took this practical knowledge and presented it as some kind of divine mystery, which made them the exclusive representatives of a new heavenly power on earth. The temple and the palace, they became these twin monuments to this new power structure. The rulers claimed they had a mandate from the heavens to control everyone down on earth, using the idea of God to legitimize a system of exploitation that was, when you get right down to it, entirely man-made. But this new system didn't just change society out there. It fundamentally altered how we experience our own bodies, our own consciousness, the world inside of us. The demands of repetitive, back-breaking labor basically split the human being in two. The physical body was reduced to just a tool, a machine for production, and a separate intellectual spirit or soul was invented to be its manager, whose job was to discipline the flesh and force it to work. According to Vaneigem, the entire concept of a soul that's separate from the body is born from this alienation. It's an internal excuse for sacrificing the pleasures of life, what the body wants, for the duty of work. The spirit becomes this little foreman inside your head, policing all your natural impulses. And for 10,000 years, just think about that, 10,000 years, this has been the dominant story of civilization. Religion made this sacrifice sacred. It taught that suffering on earth, denying the body, was a virtue. It was the necessary price you had to pay for a reward in some heavenly afterlife. Okay, so this brings us to the final and maybe the most crucial question. Have we really escaped this dynamic, or have our gods just changed their names? Vaneigem's critique slams right into our modern world. He argues that we are still worshiping abstract powers that demand our sacrifice. Whether it's the endless growth demanded by the market, the patriotic duty to the nation, or the cult of productivity. These new gods work in the exact same way. They all demand we sacrifice our present for some promised future. The core religious function is still there, whether the promised salvation is a heavenly kingdom after you die or a comfortable retirement after a lifetime of work. The logic is identical. Justify the inhumanity of the present with the promise of a future that, for many, may never even come. So this leaves us with a really provocative final thought. If religion is just a symptom of an economic system that's built on sacrifice, then just becoming an atheist, well, it doesn't really change anything fundamental. The real question is, can we ever truly be free of God without first getting rid of the economic system that created him in the first place?